Thank you so much for being here. I tell you what, this is going to be one amazing informational hour. We're so privileged to have Bob Soto, which I'm sure many of you know, Pastor Juan is president, former agent here at Alpine, very involved in the community. Bob and I worked together in the commercial business since '69, but he was in LA and I was in San Diego. And then in 2004, he became our loss prevention manager for Alpine / Lucky's. And so he would come into the store and give me audits, which I wasn't really a fan of. It was very, but anyway, anything that had to do with very knowledgeable. And I can tell you from personal experience, he's my agent. I have California Fairground, and it's because of him. My insurance company sent me my little letter and said, sorry, you're out of luck. And I had cars, I had everything with him. I immediately called him, and he took care of me outstanding. It's been outstanding ever since. So I strongly, this is truly a great thing, and I've learned so much today. So without further ado, Mr. Bob Soto. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thank you for having me. Welcome to the tumultuous world of insurance, rapidly changing by the day. I deal with 4 different carriers besides the California Fair Plan and Farmers, and because of that, every time they make a change, it involves some of our clients. It involves how we can write business. So this started to happen in 2020. What else happened in 2020? COVID. Middle of March of 2020, we get shut down in the state of California. A week and a half prior, I get a letter from farmers who I work for, who canceled me. Got a non-renewal from them. So what I had to do, what it meant I had to do, is I had to write a different type of policy. We call it a difference in condition policy. So what you see right here, benefits of a DIC policy is the difference in condition between a regular home policy and what the California Fair Plan will cover you for. So I have to write that DIC and wrap a California Fair Plan around it. So you'll see in here as I talk. And this presentation, by the way, was meant for agents, but I thought it was good. I think this presentation for Juan doesn't for everyone to come show you. But the Fair Plan is going to cover you for things like fire, lightning, wind, hail, explosion, aircraft. And many have seen the news lately, aircraft went into the UPS truck in Santee, taking us home. A lot of people at one time laughed about aircraft. And how many helicopters go over our houses out here? Hopefully that never happens to us. Then you got your DIC policy over here that primarily covers you for water loss, interior water loss. So a lot of people ask, does it cover you for flood? And when they say flood, they're thinking, a pipe breaks in my house and floods my house. Well, that's not flood, that's interior water and exterior water, which is required to have a flood policy. Now, if you have a mortgage and you needed flood insurance, they would have told you. They would have told you you needed flood insurance before you could buy the house. So I don't have a single person in East County here that requires flood. You're not by river basins or anywhere else that can flood. If you have a hillside and water builds up and floods it, it can happen, but in most cases you don't need flood insurance here. So that's when it all started. I had gotten a list of about 20 of my homeowners that were going to have to be non-renewed during the same time I was, and each one after that they were going to continue to set 4 houses. Thankfully for the ones under me, because there's only 2 of us affected, at first me, 1 other client, all the rest came after that. And because they didn't want, farmers didn't want, and other insurers didn't want to disrupt people any more than the pandemic was, people working from home now, etc., they put their kibosh and they said, okay, we're not going to nominate anybody, just listing themselves down. So then what happens this year? WHO, World Health Organization, CDC comes up and says, pandemic's gone, President of the United States, pandemic's over. Here comes the non-renewals. Fast and insurance. Some started earlier, some with Travelers. Travelers was kind of one of the first ones in town here. They took a pretty good hit with the 2018 fires. Of the 36 structures here, they have about a third of those structures. So Travelers started coming out, non-renewing, then they came out and started renewing, but increasing rates as much as $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a policy. So this is going to talk about the market today, wildfire risk options, the plan, the background, the benefits of having a difference in condition policy, because you don't have to have a difference in condition policy. You don't have to have a home insurance policy unless you have a mortgage. So I do get people that say, I own a house, I don't want anything but fire coverage. I don't want personal property coverage, I don't want water coverage, just give me fire coverage. And you can do that when you don't have a mortgage. We'll talk about the current market options and requirements for writing difference in conditions policies. So why are we here? And there's been more since then, obviously, but it starts out at 7,500 fires burning in an area over 1.2 million acres in 2018. 6,400 fires burning in an area over 250,000 acres in 2019. 9,917 fires burning in an area over 4.26 million acres in 2020. 7,667 for 364,000 acres in 22. Those are the things that are contributing to this here. Keep in mind, insurance companies are in the business to make money, and as the market keeps changing, the cost of material and labor wise, they have to look at their book of business. No insurance company wants all of this. Look what happens. And you get all the losses. So they kind of, say, okay, we want, most of them want about 19% of the business to be a zip code. Just this week, one of my carriers, I had written up a policy for them, got a quote, then came back and said, got to talk to underwriting. This is for Pine Valley. And they said, no, we hit our peak in Pine Valley, so we're not going to do any more business in Pine Valley. So that's where they hit that saturation point, and that's why State Farm, Allstate, two of the top carriers in the state of California and the country, the state of California, because they don't have enough in the reserves to cover what they already have because the material and labor has gone up so high. So they said, we got to stop and cool off, because if we continue, we can't cover all those claims. So that's where we are today. Increased reinsurance costs. You see that down here at the very bottom. And I know you can't see it because I can hardly see it too. I'm going to take questions at the end so I can get through this quicker. But a lot of people don't realize that insurance companies buy insurance for them. So farmers buys reinsurance. Typically, they'll take homes, they'll look at their book of business and say, homes that are over $1 million, we're going to buy additional insurance on top of that. There were 8 reinsurance companies here before the 2018 fires. Today, there's 2. So they dictate to the insurance companies what they will write. So now they're down to 2, and their restrictions are higher. Obviously, the insurance company has to pass those restrictions on to the homeowners and say where we will write. So that's here. So again, hard to see, but I'll just go over some of these numbers here. So you had the Camp Fire, and Tubbs Fire, Cedar Fires. Of course, everybody knows about Cedar because that was San Diego. Now, if you want to know the names of the fires, you want to have a good app that's going to give you a heads up. You can get a notification very quickly. I'm going to turn you on to an app that I highly recommend you get because it'll give you the fire department uses. It's Jason McBroom, the fire marshal in town. I'm curious, and they have I got 11 notifications now for fires, and it's called Watch Duty. So the name of the app is Watch, separate word, Duty. So when I look at Watch Duty, look at here, all the red in Northern California. That's flames. Those are fires going on right now. And so when we have anything near us, like when we had the one recently here at Coyote Holler, had 2 clients that had to evacuate from that fire. Luckily right now we have nothing in the San Diego area, but you can get a notification, and then it keeps you updated, gives you pictures, everything that you want to know about it. So I'll talk more about the Cedar fire. That one is in 2003. Took out 273,000 acres and 2,820 structures, businesses and structures. There were 15 deaths that were involved in that one. Another one that was here, San Diego County, witch fire that happened in 20,797,000 acres, 1,650 structures that were taken out. So as you can see, there's over 20 named fires that took out thousands of acres and thousands of structures. So this is where we are today, and unfortunately, many deaths that happened. So our top 20 largest California wildfires, as you can see here, 2020 and 2021 were pretty much the biggest ones, but when you look at 1932 through 1999, not very many. But then you can see the big fires that started in the last few years here. 13+ billion in paid losses in 2018 alone. 7.5 billion in premium in California were lost. And homes at risk for extreme wildfires. Of course, California was #1. Florida #2. So what's happening in Florida? The same things happening in Florida as happening here. Their problem is water. Okay, so because of the hurricanes and the floods, farmers last month pulled out of the state of Florida, just like the State Farm and Allstate pulled out of California. We pulled out of Florida because, again, we're at a saturation point where there's not enough reserves to cover any more property, so they can go cool off and stay out of Florida for a while. You know, we're continuing to see extreme weather conditions due to climate change, and a lot of irregularities there. So California was #1, Florida #2. Right now, as we speak, Louisiana is burning. They're on fire out there. Drought conditions very bad, just like what just happened in Hawaii. Drought conditions very bad. You had the tropical storm that was going through, creating those high winds, and it carried that storm out there. We're going to talk a little bit more about Hawaii in a minute, because I don't know how many of you read today's paper, UT. There's an article here about Hawaii and what's going to happen to them involving insurance. So it says, Hawaii wildfires spur insurers to reassess the risk there. So climate change. Over the past century, California has warmed by about 3 degrees Fahrenheit, more than the global average of about 1 degree Fahrenheit. Hotter air draws water out of plants and soils more efficiently than cool, leaving the tree shrubs, rolling grasslands of the state dry and fine to burn. Warmer spring and summer temperatures reduce snowpack, and earlier spring snowmelt create longer and more intense dry seasons that increase moisture, stress on vegetation and forests, more susceptible and severe wildfire. So you see scores. Some of you who have a California Fair Plan already with renewals, just come up and tell them what your score is. So there's a fire one. Some companies use zip code. Farmers use the zip code to identify Alpine as an extreme area for fires. So if you were 91901, you needed a fair plan. Okay, some use a fire line score itself. So you could be a 1 or a 2, anything below a 3. One of our carriers would write, as long as you have 500 feet of defensible space 360 degrees around you. That's kind of hard, especially out here. A lot of you might have to clean the National Forest. We're back and have no control of that. You might be in the Crown Hills where I live, and you can't control that because you've got a lot of other houses around you. So I think in Crown Hills, I'm sure a lot of homes there, and I believe I only have 4 homes in Crown Hills that don't need a fair plan. Every single other home needs a fair plan. You can have one house, he was at 496 feet, 4 feet short, and you need a fair plan. The fair plan is not the end of the world. We'll talk about that too, because I have a fair plan, and you just have to know how to work with the fair plan, so it's not too expensive. Wildfire risk at a glance, the number of housing units that are in California at risk, 13,680, number of percent of housing units at high risk, and extreme risk, 2,040,000, about 15%. Largest insured wildfire loss is $14 billion. Number of acres burned in 2020, 4,092,000, and largest historical wildfire August complex 2020, 1,032,000 acres burned. Okay, California Fair Plan. So, the California Fair Plan is a syndicated fire insurance pool comprised of all insurers licensed to conduct property business in California. So what that means, it's not a part of the state of California. It's a separate entity of their own, backed and supported by all the major carriers that's doing business in the state of California. Okay? So what happens is if there's not enough, people might say, well, God, I mean, if Allstate, State Farm, 2 of the largest insurers in the country, don't have enough of their reserves to cover claims, well, how can the Fair Plan do it? Because the Fair Plan not only has the pool of money that's in there from people who have policies with them, but since they're backed and supported by all the carriers in the state of California, if there's ever a catastrophic fire that cannot be covered by the reserves of the Fair Plan, every major carrier has to pony up to cover. So, in essence, it makes the Fair Plan the strongest carrier in the state of California. It's just like the CEA. A lot of people think that the CEA, California Earthquake Authority, is part of the state of California and how's the state up with their budget and everything else that we're going to cover my property. Separate entity of its own. Right now, because we haven't had a major earthquake in the United States, in California, since 1994, they have a ton of money in their reserves. So, again, it's completely separate. The first thing people will say is, I don't want anything to do with the state of California. There's nothing to do with the state of California. So again, when it talks about the participating carriers, all your major carriers, carrier reinsurance, the reinsurers in the state are involved as well. Who runs it? There's a board. And so on this board is all property casualty insurers are members of all the major companies in the state of California that are part of the board. Fair Plan coverage gaps. So when they talk about the gaps, wind and hail is covered by the Fair Plan. So 1 in 42 homes each year there's a claim for wind damage, average about 8,000. So the Fair Plan is what covers you for wind and hail. Water damage, that's in the DIC policy, difference in condition policy. So we use farmers as an example of the difference in condition policy that covers you for the theft, the water loss. Then you have the Fair Plan covering you for the rest over here. Theft, 1 in 270 homes are average of $4,000. fire, lightning, 1 in 323 homes, 50,000, bodily injury, property damage, that's your difference in condition policy. That's somebody that comes on your property, trips and falls, sues you. Medical payments to others, that's covered by your difference in condition policy. Dog bites. What do you guys think the most prominent claim is for a home policy? Dog bites. And then secondly, there are more water claims than there are fire and theft combined. So a lot of people who say, well, don't give me that DIC policy that covers me for the water, I just want to cover my home. So you're more likely to have that water loss in your fire, and you're going to be self-insured when you don't do the DIC policy. Credit card theft, that's also covered by the DIC. So all homeowner claims and all, 1 out of every 19 homes for about 11,000 average. So benefits of a DIC policy, and especially this company is called Agents. Farmers owns a brokerage called Craft Lake. In the Craft Lake brokerage, those farmers' agents can use any insurer in the brokerage. So I have 4. I have Aegis, I have Bamboo, I have Specialty, and farmers that we can write DIC policies with. And then there's other businesses we can do in that. We can do other types of insurance too for businesses, for liability only type of policies, etc., through our Craft Lake agents. So whenever there's what we call an appetite, if our farmers doesn't have an appetite for business, I could go into Craft Lake, do a comparison, run the information, and it'll come back and tell me who would write it. But this company here, Aegis, is the only one that designed their policy to be more affordable than all the rest. Many times I'll run that quote with farmers first, and then run it with Aegis, and it's $1,000 to $2,000 less with Aegis. Because what they do is they look and say, what the things that can take the house down to the ground is covered by the fair plan. So we don't need to have higher coverages for items, for other structures, personal property, loss of use. We don't need to have higher coverages because none of those things are going to take the house to the ground, so they'll lower those. You could increase it eventually if you wanted to, but at least by lowering it, it makes it a lot more affordable for that difference in condition policy. Because your most expensive policy is going to be in California Fair Plan. And so like again, a lot of this stuff I'm not going to go over because it has more to do with the agents themselves. But here's what they call it in endorsements. Whenever we write a policy with agents, you have to sign an endorsement saying that you understand that they will not cover you for fire, lightning, explosion, windstorm, riot or civil commotion, aircraft, vehicles, smoke, volcanic eruption, vandalism. The reason being is because the fair plan covers you for all those things. So they have you sign a condition document saying that you understand that there's a fair plan that covers you for all those things there. So typical requirements for DIC carriers is matching coverage for ABC, A being your dwelling, B separate structures, C for your personal property. And so typically we look to, the fair plan is customized to meet your needs. So we get calls from people that say, hey, I got a quote from this company and they gave me this quote for this DIC and they gave me this quote for the fair plan and the fair plan is $6,000, why is it that much? It's because the other agents don't live here, don't write business here. I write the most fair plans in San Diego County. Other agents will write it and just take numbers off of the difference in condition policy and move it over to this fire policy here. And that's what's driving the cost of those things here. It's costly enough because the factors that go into fair plans and the cost of a fair plan is, are you on public water or what? Are you on a slope? What's your distance to the fire station? What's your defensible space around you? What's your access road? I've gone to horrible roads where to go I have to get a picture of a house and I'm on this winding dirt road, and one time I had to be towed out because there's soft sand in there. So think of a fire truck trying to get to that house. Well, guess what? Bill Pascal, who used to be the fire chief in town, I insured his house. He told me years ago, after the 2018 fires, those houses that have those type of conditions I just talked about, they're not going up there. You'll get fire retardant dumped on them, or some water dumped on them, but they're not going to go out there. Shoot, even in Hawaii, they had hydrants that were out of water.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go up there. So that's what drives the cost. A lot of people say, gee, why is my fair plan policy so high? And then, I always tell people, before you buy that house, you want to shop your insurance and see what it's going to cost you. Because your real estate agent, their job is to sell the home. They didn't want you to fall in love with the home. They'll tell you at the end, oh, by the way, you need to get insurance to close escrow. Then you're on the phone for 2 hours getting rejections because nobody wants to write them. We can write 99.9% of anything out here. Okay. But these are the type of conditions that we work with our clients with. So I'm going to pass this 360 value replacement cost estimator is back before the fires in 2003. There wasn't a system in place. Homes were just said, okay, builders are charging 150 a square foot, 150 times a square foot, okay, we're going to insure you for X. That didn't work so well. When those fires hit, because 66 2/3 of the homes in 2003 were underinsured. So they had to go out and get additional loans on top of whatever the insurance paid to be able to rebuild. So then the Department of Insurance said, hey, you carriers, you guys are going to come up with a system that's going to better tell what it costs to rebuild a home and factor in things like debris removal and all that good stuff that is necessary. So this 360 is the tool that all carriers are using. So what happens is once we put your address into the system, it goes to the county assessor's office, comes back and tells us what your house consisted of when it was built. Okay, if you did more building than the house without permit, we're not going to know. So any permitted improvements that you did from the time the house was built, that all comes back. But we ask a lot of questions. A lot of carriers and a lot of agents don't ask you, because we ask you all the questions we need, because we want to make sure that you're going to have enough coverage to rebuild your house. And so we use this tool here, 360 estimator, to tell us, because the FAIR plan doesn't have an estimator. The FAIR plan relies on us to use the quote we pull from the difference in condition policy to put in the proper dwelling amount. Then they'll do the FAIR plan, they'll write policies for owner or tenant, occupied, they'll do seasonal, they'll do vacant. Okay, when you have a home that is tenant occupied, it's going to cost you more because typically tenants don't take as much care of the property as the homeowner does. Seasonal, again, is going to be more because they're not there all the time to react to something. Vacant especially is going to be more because it's vacant. And so things can happen when nobody's around. Here. Okay, so that's primarily it there, but I want to talk about a couple of things that two more carriers stopped covering in California. These were Berkshire and some other unknown company here. $50,000 to lose homeowners insurance in California. I've got a stack. This stack here is all of the changes that happened in the last 2 months. How to get more affordable home insurance as costs soar. This is what's going on in the industry right now. And I'm not kidding you when I said earlier that daily we're getting notifications. When State Farm and Allstate pulled out, of course it increased, people coming to us. And Allstate and State Farm both said they would continue to take care of their current book of business. Not so much. They'll take care of you by increasing your rates $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more a year. Allstate, nobody can figure out Allstate. They would go out to a house. They would tell you, you need to remove these trees, you need to box in your eaves, you need to put in gutter guards, you need to have fire vents. It's about $20,000 worth of work. And they'll come back in 21 days, and if you have it done, we'll continue to insure you, but there's going to be an increase to it too. So this has been typical, again, like I talked about, since Travelers started about 1.5 years ago, and then the non-renewals, and massive increases. It was shockers to people who didn't know until they got their first mortgage bill after that increase, because the insurance got paid automatically by the mortgage company, and they looked at this, what the heck? And then they would call us and say, hey, can you help me out with this here? So one of the things that not only the fire council here with Jason McGrill and some others here in town, Alpine is a fire-wise community. There's certain requirements that a city, and by the way, Alpine is the only fire-wise community in San Diego County. And so kudos to Jason McGrill, because he went through the Firewise USA and got all the requirements that they wanted to become a Firewise community. Well, what does that mean? It means that you get a 7.5% discount on your California Fair Plan. So that reduces costs. Fair Plan just came out this last week, and now we're giving 14% discounts if you do the following. Your dwelling must have what's called a Class A fire rated roof, meaning stone, concrete, clay tile, or metal. 6 inches at the bottom of all exterior walls must be made of non-combustible material. So a lot of homes might have their slab up at least 6 inches. That's all these things have to be that, not just any one of these things. Vents, so you have to have the new fireproof vents installed. Windows must be double paned, and eaves must be enclosed, boxed in. Now some eaves are cement or stuccoed in around it. Some eaves, if you use a fireproof paint, it qualifies. But all of that has to be verified by the Fair Plan in order to get that 14% discount. Then the other part of it is the wildfire hardening. Vegetation debris must be cleared from under decks. There must be an ember-resistant zone maintained within 5 feet of the home. So that rule just came out in 2022, which said, and this is being policed not by the insurance companies, not by inspectors, by the insurance companies, but by the fire marshals, fire, CAL FIRE, etc. So this is outside of your home. You can't have a plant higher than 18 inches, 5 feet from the home. Okay. So those of you who have ivy growing up your walls, and you got back patio covers, and you got stuff growing over the top of them. I've had some people, unfortunately, I get it. I mean, I think it looks pretty cool too, but you read in here what happens with plants. When there's a fire, it sucks the water out of those plants. So like here is Hawaii, what I talked about this morning, is this guy named, his name was Roy Wright. He's the head of an insurance industry funded research organization. And his team's job is to analyze exactly how the fire spread once they hit an inhabited area, looking for clues like how burning embers go into buildings, vents, that hadn't yet ignited, and whether things like fences, plants, sheds close to the various houses help the fire spread. Plants help the fire spread. So again, the fair plan is going to give you those discounts, but this is tough to meet these requirements. But if you get that 14% for this, and you get another 7% off your California Fair Plan in a fire-wise community, then it's 21% that you can save on the fair plan, which is substantial. There must be no combustible sheds. See, like this article said, no combustible sheds or outbuildings within 30 feet of the home. Keep in mind, you've got propane tanks, you've got gasoline tanks. I go to a lot of homes, they got wood piled up right in their back patio. That's combustible, not a great place to have it. Must be 30 feet away. That's even to get the insurance. Because the inspector comes out and sees that wood piled up on your porch there in the back there, they're going to tell you, no, you need to remove it. If you don't remove it, show a picture and sign off that you did it, we're not going to insure you. Then defensible space must be maintained, including trimming trees, clearing brush, and removing debris from the yard. So this carrier here that I talked about ages, again, most economical of all of our carriers. That's our go-to one. We put 99% of our DICs, difference in condition policies, with them. They now require no tree over the roof. Even though it used to be in insurances, if it wasn't growing up into the eaves or hanging on the roof, where that, especially if you've got asphalt shingle roof, where the wind blows and will wear away the asphalt shingle on it, it couldn't, you have to trim it up. Well, I had a client that if she trimmed it up 7 feet, I took pictures, sent it in, then they came back, oh, we got a new rule. You can't have any overhanging at all. So basically, you got to take your roof line, and you got something hanging over here. You got to take your saw and just go, whoop, and not anything over the roof at all. Because again, she had an oak tree, an older oak tree. She has solar panels below. Doesn't matter if they're solar or not, but both is heavy. The wood's heavy. If the winds that we get comes down, hits the roof, breaks it. They don't want to be responsible. They would be the ones that would cover the solar panels that got destroyed if something came down. So they said no. So she had to have a crew come back out there to the tune of $2,000 to cut the rest of their back in line there. So there's a lot of things you can do. We were talking earlier, Corinne, that house in Hawaii. How many of you saw that one house that was standing all alone there?
Yeah.
Guess why? All those things that I just said. Clay tile roof, you know, it wasn't wood siding walls. They didn't have the sheds around it. They didn't have wood fences around it. That thing stood there with all that heat, and it's still there today because of what it did to it. So, but you're also only as good as your neighbor. If you're doing all those good things, you're putting vents in, but your neighbors aren't, then if their house goes, probably yours will too. Now, how many of you heard about those fires in Laguna Niguel last year? 21 multi-million-dollar homes that went up. And that was winds that came off the ocean. There was brush at the top of the ocean that caught fire. There was no vegetation within. This was a gated community, hardened community, that didn't have brush going up into those houses. Guess how it went down? Vents. The neighbors got into the vents. One house goes, multiple more will go, another one over here, and there's get into that one. And then there you go. So, how many of you here have, I know a handful of you in here, Pam and Pat just moved into my neighborhood and they had to get a fair plan. Bob Reagan got under you, had to get a fair plan. How many of you have recently gotten on you? congratulations to the rest, but when the renewal comes up, you can anticipate the probability that you'll either be non-renewed or you'll have an excessive increase in your premium. Whichever the case, if you can't find a carrier that will help you, I'm not here to sell you anything, but we can help. Because I know that the people who are going through escrow, like Pam and Pat, you're on the phone, you love this house, you want this house, and you're getting rejected. That's tough. We want to move, get in, we can help with that. Any questions, concerns?
Yeah, in the process of selling our home, we had to have the home we sold inspection. So Jason came out and we were talking to him. I told him we were getting the California Fair Plan. He goes, that's great, it's only good for 5 years. And I went, what?
Yeah, that's a wish. A wish by the fair plan, a hope by the fair plan. Because the wish and hope was that climate change, these other things that have triggered these fires would go away. But the fair plan policies do not expire after 5 years. Okay? We've got fair plans that have been in place for as long as I've been aging, 13 years, and there's others that have had longer. So that hope was by the fair plan is that the other insurance company will take the property on without a fair plan required. That's not happening. It's worse now than ever when the fair plan put that in place.
I thought, and I don't have to take steps to file a pardon for.
So, I mean, should you?
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, but do you have to? Not unless you have policy. Correct?
We just had our insurance increase. We've been with the same carrier state on for 40 years living in Pine Valley. And there was no inspection. They jacked the rate up $1,500 to $1,800. But they don't come out and look at anything.
Well, when you first buy insurance on your home, there's an inspection. 99% of you would never know that was inspected, especially today with drones. So they'll come out, they'll look at your house, they'll go around your property with a drone themselves. They can go all the way around the house and they'll take pictures, because every single inspection is in the approved quote that we see as agency. So we only know, it's a third party that does the inspections. We don't know who they are, we don't know when they go out. The only time we know of, an inspection is if there's a problem. So what happens is, when we go out for a fair plan policy, we have to take a picture of the front of the house, a picture of the address. If coverages exceed 1.5 million, we have to take 5 other pictures of the house, send it in with an application. When I go out to a house and I see there's a problem, I talk to the homeowner and say, hey, I'm going to submit this thing, but you're going to have a problem if you don't fix X, Y, Z over here. And then what will happen, if they don't fix X, Y, Z, the inspector will come out, they'll note it, they'll send notes to the homeowner, one to us, saying that you have X amount of time to fix these things or we're going to drop it. So they do give you time to correct it. Depending on the seriousness of it, it could be 30 days or it could be, I have some that just say, well, we're just not going to renew you next year if you don't fix it, because it's not that big a deal, but it's a deal. But every home gets inspected. And they have come out and said recently that there will be more frequent, like every 2 to 3 years now, inspections of homes because of the ongoing risk.
You mentioned what was called the ever-freeze zone in 2022, and now they have what they call the zone 0. So it's changed. Last year we complied with the ever-freeze zone with the 18-inch or less. Now they're telling us that 0 plants, no plants, nothing combustible within 5 feet, effective January 1st of 2024. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that one, no.
Okay, we're being told that
As
as
initially, it was, if you deal, how many of you deal with little Bonnie over here on Victoria with the Sunrise Power Link?
right, that's where we heard that from, she told us next year,
She's the commando.
she said,
She's the bad guy.
so they will not, we've gotten a grant a few times to do vegetation control, but we also upgraded our farming last year, took out everything within that farming, planted low growth, fire resistant, but she said there's no such thing as fire resistant plants. So we did it anyway, and now we've got it nicely established, and she said next year, she said, you can have no plants within 5 feet.
If you do business with that. If you
You don't
don't
do
do business,
business with that.
yeah, if you do business with the Sunrise Power, so I got a lot of clients when I go out there, I tell them about this, I give them a handout
Right.
from the Sunrise Power Link, about these investable space.
Yeah.
If you don't do business with them, trust me, it's gonna take many, many years before, there's only one Jason, McGrew, the fire marshal, to go around to all these.
But they're calling it the zone zero now.
Yeah, and that's going to be, again, it's only if you apply for a grant.
That's not the state fire marshal that's pushing that?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just, they're not going to be able to get to all those houses, it's going to be when you apply for the grant. So the worst case scenario with them is, so Bonnie comes out, she tells you, okay, you want a grant for your double pane windows. But if you, we're not gonna give you that grant unless you move all these plans over here. So you gotta decide, do I want the double pane windows, or do I want the plants? You're not gonna get both. And so a lot of my clients will say, we're not dealing with bonding.
Right. And one more question kind of along those lines. You mentioned a lot of things that the insurance industry is looking for now in making your home more fire safe or fireproof or whatever you call it. Where are those rules published? Is there any single source where I wrote down almost everything you were saying, but is there an actual place I can find those same things to look for?
Yeah, all of these things that you can look for are with Bonnie over at Sunrise Power. And she has a list of all the hardening things that are required.
Okay, so that's probably,
And Jason McBroom at the fire department there.
okay, so they have,
Or if you feel free, I can give you a copy of what Fair Plan sent us this week.
yeah, that would be nice to have. Is that what we
I
tried?
in the Carl's Junior Center, my office, and
Okay.
I can run you a copy.
Because when Jason came out, he let things go that Bonnie would not.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Bonnie's not, because she's the approver of the grant. Jason's,
Yeah.
right now, here's Jason, and Jason told me this, and let me tell you something about Bonnie, but you can't say that I said it. No, I'm not very bad enough for her. I mean, she's doing her job. But she said, because I asked her, I said, you know what? I'm doing some of the legwork with them, because as I'm out there taking pictures, I'm passing out the defensible space documents. And I said, how are these people, I mean, you're telling them to do all this stuff, and you're not going to give them the grant unless they do this stuff. She says, realistically, Bob, if they at least start, they don't have to finish it, but at least if they start to do what's required, we'll approve. So just start. And Jason, you get on the council with him, and he just told the group this last week. He said, he's not going to go out, because I said, Jake, who's going to be the bad guy? It's not going to be us. You know, we're not enforcing this 5-foot defensible zero stuff. We'll tell them what the insurance companies are required. And he said, well, first of all, he says, as we come upon these houses, there's going to be a conversation. So the second time, we're going to talk. It's going to be stronger conversation. Third time is going to be a notice. Fourth time, there will be a lien. So they're going through steps to do it. So where are they going to start? I'll tell you, I rode, I'm the president of the HOA at Crown Hills as well. So Jason and I rode Crown Hills end of last year. 95% of the homes do not meet the zero requirement. 95%. Everybody's got plants and trees and stuff growing up with it. And like he said, he's not going to go to every single door and do this. They're going to go to the worst. We're looking for the worst properties first before they'll start building us.
2 questions. Number 1, the defense school space. I'm one of the 2,500 who lost my house in the Cedar Fire. We had a group, Cedar Fire Rebuilding Resources Group, where we compared a lot of notes. And a couple of them were running into problems that they were being told you have to clear 100 feet. But that put them onto their neighbor's property, and they didn't want them on their property. So does the insurance companies
Yeah.
understand that?
No, they don't. It still has to be 100 feet. I mean, any policy, there's even signs, if you went to Julie and some others, talks about 100 feet of defensible space. So what you have to do is if you're not friends with your neighbor, they're not willing to help you save their home and your home, then you call Jason. You call your fire marshal, and your fire marshal Jason will go out to those houses. I've had many people that, complained about their neighbor, this and that. I give Jason's number, Jason paid to visit and explain the facts.
How does the city of San Diego get away with not clearing along the canyons where houses are within 100 feet? It's because they're a city, just like Nokia, like Nokia.
It should
Why
not.
didn't have to do it?
No, they have the same risk that we do out here now.
Okay, second question. The house in Hawaii, when they interviewed the owner, and she said what saved her house was grandpa when he made it metal roof, heavy metal. I remember when I was on the Lakeside Fire District Board, we banned shake shingle roofs. They were not allowed.
We can't buy a home for the shake shingle.
Well, when the Cedar Fire went through Scripps Ranch, I talked to some people whose houses didn't burn, and the ones that did had the original shake shingles. The desk jockeys were trying to blame it on the eucalyptus trees, and it wasn't the trees, it was shake shingle. I remember when I was on the board, the city of Anaheim had a wildfire that went through the condominiums, shake shingle to shake shingle to shake shingle. So, when people in this room, for example, they have to get a new roof. If they find a metal roof to put on, does that matter to the insurance company?
Oh, we love it.
It will?
Oh, absolutely.
And I've also heard the Great Tahoe's bad because the numbers get up underneath it.
Well, it can, but a lot of some of the homes in Crown Hills have been, the tile is still good, but it's still wood. That's starting to go. They had some leaks, but as they're being re-roofed, they're putting the blocks in the front to stop anyone from getting in there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
North State Farm have not been canceled, but I'm reason why I consider it. Is there a point where, as a fact that we still have insurance with State Farm that we should look at, a DIC, a California Fair Plan, could be less expensive than what State Farm is going to charge us?
I can tell you 75% of all that we've done quotes for that have had these high increases, we've saved them money. So it just depends on, when you go from having a standalone policy to having 2 policies, usually there's typically going to be an increase. Usually that increase is going to be less than the massive increase that 20,000, 18,000 that Travelers was giving people. But it just depends on how much of an increase you have. And she didn't want to say anything, but Corinne had State Farm too. She's seen yearly an increase. And some of the increases have been general over the year, but lately we've seen $5,000 or $6,000 increases. So it just depends on how much of an increase you got. But in most cases, we've been able to save.
You were talking about water damage, and was that the DFC policy? Where are my slides and the rock slides?
You would need flood insurance for that.
Okay, you have a separate flood insurance
Yep.
policy, so that's good.
Yep. And it's only in certain zones, you have to be in a certain zone, and if you have a mortgage company, they will tell you you have to have.
They don't require.
Who did that before? You know, they keep us at that. And we have lots of us, and I worry about them watching, moving, and visiting the house. You're the people going there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the case. I mean, even though it's not required, you might want to consider it, but it gets tough when you have to have a fair plan, regular DIC policy, a flood policy, it's, you know.
Well, we're already about.
Sir, did you have a question?
I understand, ready for wildfire, we'll give you the definition of zones, the state fire marshal recommends it right now. For the zone 0, but they're not going to say 0 planters, they will move dead and dying, dead, and no mulch, no redwood mulch, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll walk around and possibly people that need to be rocked next to the house. Like Jason will tell you all day long, you know, once that amber gets in there and smolders and it gets under that wall of the paper, there goes the house.
For the bark, we bought something called bark, rock, or rock bark. It looks just like bark, it's rock.
Yeah, we have it in Crown Hills around our clubhouse too. Yeah, it's fine too, that's artificial.
No bird.
I'm sorry? It's rock, but it looks like it's water. It looks like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yes, ma'am?
You mentioned Firewise communities and getting the discounts with our and Alpine. I don't understand how Alpine is a Firewise community. I'm impressed with the same brush and you know, especially this. And what's the difference?
I don't know the criteria, but the best thing to do is, if you're not in Alpine, is get with your fire marshal or CAL FIRE, whatever it is, to get with Jason.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of red tape, paperwork and stuff that has to be submitted, and pictures and all this stuff that has to be shown.
Well, you know, Crest is completely surrounded by Habitat Conservancy. And it's really difficult to say, push your stuff back away from my house. My house is right on.
I enjoy houses.
This is state and the city and county and everybody saying, oh yeah, go ahead and put these preserves around you. So you're completely surrounded. I've got a gal that is impressed, she's right on the preserve, going on the evacuation, one of the evacuation contingency routes. And she's cleared all around her property, and she's got that PhD right there. And she had to go with a fair plan with, I don't know which company she got, $5,000, and then plus on top of that, all the other things, so $7,000, $8,000. So
I've got clients live in Hopkins Valley, up there, and they're paying, you know, like almost $10,000 a year in the NLC and the Fairfield. And a lot of it goes back to what I said, is that your access road on a slope, this is a fire station.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there is every single part of Alpine 91901 completely clear and clean. So again, there's certain requirements, at least the majority of them, have to be up to snuff before you become a Firewise community. Even Truckee, I got a client that has a seasonal home in Truckee, and Truckee's a Firewise community up there. So it's just a matter of the fire marshal just going in and submitting your paperwork and getting it through.
Is that who has to do the paperwork? Because that would be nice to
Yes.
know.
Your fire marshals, CAL FIRE has to do it, they can get with Jason over here and he'll tell them, because it's a shame that, like Descanso, if you go into Descanso Junction Restaurant, right at the front, it says Firewise Community. No, they're not. They're not. They were at one time, but they lost it because of some of the things they did.
We had a fire safe council.
Yeah, so,
That's what we're not.
but it would be nice if the surrounding other areas with zip codes would become Firewise communities as well, because they're always asking, oh, I heard about that Firewise, can we get that discount? Only Alpine.
Can you do anything for this woman who's just had to sign up with the California Fair Plan? Exorbitant prices. Does she have to wait until she comes due again now to change?
No, we can make it
Because
just,
I would give her your.
I mean, what we do is if, some people unhappy with what they got, they can transfer the policy over to us once we have eyes on it. We can go in there and make adjustments to the policy. Because again, we customize the fair plans for you. It doesn't require, see, your standard State Farm, Allstate, Liberty Mutual, whatever, all of those are what we call bundled policies or farmer's policies. So it starts out with your dwelling. Let's say your dwelling's $500,000. Well, then your separate structures is 10% of your dwelling. So that's, $50,000. Then you have your personal property. That's 45-50% of your dwelling. Then your loss of use, that's 20 or 40% of your dwelling. It's all built in. You can't strip any of those coverages out. You can't decrease any of the amounts, but you can increase them. Fair plan starts at 0, the dwelling, and it's not bundled. And so we put that in there, and then after that, we say, we have a conversation. We just don't build it for you and say, here you go. That's all I can do for you, because a lot of agents will do that because we get paid off commission, and the higher the premium, the bigger the commission. So they'll bump up all that stuff there. Well, a lot of people, when I talk to them, say, what do you think you have in personal property? You have a look through your house, and you've got a 3-bedroom house, furniture in 3 bedrooms, living room furniture. You've got your TVs, your computers, your dishes, your clothing. Go room by room and try to come up with not just a number, because I can tell a lot of people we're all hoarders by nature. They would never go back and buy, a lot of the stuff we have. But if you use that number that's on your existing policy, it's 75% of your dwelling. I got people all day long telling me, I don't have that much stuff, Bob. Can you reduce it? Can't reduce it. I can increase it, but I can't reduce it. But they shouldn't be taking that number off an existing standalone policy and sticking it over here on your fair plan, because it's going to increase your rates. So that's why some of these fair plans are so high, because they're putting in high numbers for the other structures, for the personal property, for the loss of use, without ever having a conversation with them. I'm working with you, so I'm going to ask you, what do you want? Most people will tell me, I just want to be able, if my house burns down to the ground, to replace the essentials of the house. Not all the nice to have stuff, just the essentials to start. So we do, because why do you want to pay all that premium for years and years and years and years on a policy?
So you're flexible and you work with people.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying. And do you come up to people's homes?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's.
And like I told people too, if you put solar on your house, you need to tell us so we can add it to your policy. Because you don't want to have damage done to it and then not have it covered because you didn't tell us. If you went out and bought a $20,000 living room bedroom set, and that increases your personal property, you use policy, then we increase it for you. You can always go back in and adjust everything, even before the renewal. One last question.
Okay, this is a crown field question. So the property outside of our property, there are some large trees, and they're within that area that's just clear of the grass and stuff, and it looks like, does somebody come through, clear out the bottom, usually, because they look like those are large trees that go out of the ground?
Yeah, so that's the landscape crew out there. So as they're behind right now because of Hillary. Made a massive crown hills, a lot of branches, and you guys saw all the pine needles all over the place. So they're behind what they're supposed to be doing, but they will go through those canyon areas. And they're supposed to, it's supposed to be 10 feet off the ground. Yeah. And if it doesn't happen and you're not seeing it, you just call Elizabeth and she'll get on. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.